All right, let's mix it up a little bit today. Got a bunch of different topics to cover. Let's talk about the freshmen, who's played, who's burned their red shirts. Let's talk about Donovan McMillan. Let's talk about Gavin Bartholomew. Let's talk about white helmets. Let's talk about recruiting. Let's cover a lot of bases. Got a bunch of things to clear off the desk today on the Thursday edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right, it's Thursday. It's youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's the Morning Pitt. I'm Chris Peak. The website's Panther-Lair.com. You know all of those things. Most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. Message boards to interact with other Pitt fans, all that whole deal. It's a way to talk to other Pitt fans. I mean, you're a Pitt fan. You want to converse with other Pitt fans, even if it's sometimes unpleasant. I mean, this is the place to do it. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, and the message boards there at Panther-Lair.com. And then our YouTube channel right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, where you find all of our exclusive Pitt video content, these daily morning Pitt videos, a little bit of Pitt talk to start your day off. And we have our live show that we do every week, like we did last night, Wednesday nights at 8:30 p.m., with me and Jim Hammett talking a little bit of Pitt sports. We have our live post-game shows that we do. Nothing this week because Pitt is off this week, but we'll be live again after the Louisville game next week. That's a 6:30 kickoff at Acrisure Stadium for homecoming. 6:30 game, figure it goes about 3:15, somewhere around there. Going to be done with the game by 10, get the post-game press conferences, get home. I'm going to say we'll start around 11:30, maybe call it an even midnight just to be safe. But either way, we'll have an hour of Pitt sports talk. We'll have an hour of post-game talk after that one, and it's all right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So if you want to make sure you don't miss the live show on Wednesday nights, you don't miss the live post-game show, you can like this video and subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You can turn on notifications. You'll get an alert sent to your phone every time we go live. You might forget that we do a post-game show. You might forget that we have a weekly show every Wednesday night. But if you get those notifications turned on, you're not going to miss it. So like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Bunch of stuff I wanted to get to today. Covering a lot of different bases, a lot of different grounds. I kind of gave a rundown there at the beginning, but I'm going to start at the end. And actually, I wasn't planning to talk about this first, but I am going to talk about it first because I think it's a relevant topic. Well, it's a segue into a relevant topic. It's a gateway to a relevant topic. It's the white helmets. So you probably saw this on social media. I think it was PJ O'Brien put up an Instagram post with him in a white helmet, white with the blue cathedral stripe up the middle, the blue Pitt with a yellow outline and all that stuff. Pretty slick looking. You know, they've been teasing the white uniforms for the last year plus, been waiting for those to come out. When are they going to roll out those alternate uniforms? I mean, I think you all know where I stand on this. They have perfect uniform. Well, they don't have perfect uniforms. They had perfect uniforms when they were using the throwbacks in 2016 and 17 and 18. They then went to the new look in 2019, which is better than the old look, but not quite as good as the throwbacks. But I digress. They're good as they are. They don't really need alternates, but if the players like them and the recruits like them, fine. So seems like Pitt might be lining up to go with all whites at some point. The whites with those white helmets. And it's funny because there was a reaction, a small reaction of like, seriously, you're going to roll out the white helmets now? You're going to roll out white uniforms or some kind of alternate now when the team is 1-4 and a 4-game losing streak, having not beaten an FBS opponent yet this season? This is when you're going to do it? And I get that response. I get that reaction because, look, yeah, things aren't good right now, and things are in pretty rough shape for this this football program, and it's hard to sort of focus on those other things. It sort of feels like all sort of ancillary and unnecessary when you look at the struggles that the team is mired in at this particular point in time. But between that, like the white helmet tees, and then some of the other things we're seeing this week, because with the team off this week, the coaches are on the road. They're doing a lot of recruiting. I mean, I'm sure they're watching film in their hotel rooms or something, but the coaches are on the road recruiting. They're going into high schools. They're talking to high school coaches. They're offering a bunch of young underclassmen and continuing to recruit business as usual. I just posted something on the message boards might have been early yesterday morning or late Tuesday night, I forget when it was, about a 2025, it's a sophomore quarterback prospect from Texas, or I guess he's a junior, quarterback prospect from Texas who's going to visit for, I think, the Florida State game in a few weeks. And a lot of the response was like, why? Like, how do you even recruit in this situation? If you're going to have offensive staff changes and, how do you send coaches on the road when this is the product that they're representing and selling? And the thing you have to understand is, for you and I, that might seem awkward. That might seem like a real challenge, and it might seem like an exercise in futility. But the reality is that even when you're struggling, you have to continue conducting business. The games happen very much in the immediate, right? I mean, the game happens on Saturday for 3 hours or 3 hours and 15 minutes or whatever it is. That's all very immediate, and everything is building up to that. But so much of college athletics is planning for the long term and always planning for that next step. I mean, that's what recruiting is. Recruiting is trying to get guys who are going to come in and play for your team. Not right now. You're not going to get that guy to play when you take on Florida State. They just offered a kid from Fort Cherry, a sophomore, Matt Sieg, earlier this week. He's going to come to the Louisville game next weekend. He's not going to suit up. He's not going to help you, but you have to be planning for the future. You have to be recruiting for the future. So even if there are staff changes coming in the offseason, right now, all of those guys still work for Pitt. Everybody works at Pitt. They work for Pitt, and they need to go out and recruit for Pitt. You continue recruiting for the school until the time when you no longer work for the school. And that's, I think that applies to a lot of things. And look, we've been down these roads before. I've covered Pitt through plenty of ups and a whole lot of downs. And through the downs, inevitably, when the team is struggling, when they lose a few games in a row or they look bad, and we post a recruiting update or a recruiting article, a lot of the responses, we know what it is. And I'm not even criticizing anyone here or judging because I understand where it comes from. But a lot of the responses are, yeah, good luck landing him, or what's he going to do when all the coaches are gone, or why are they even trying, or this or that. They keep working at it because that's what you have to do. All right, coaches have to believe they're going to pull out of the tailspin they're in, and they have to believe that no matter what happens this year, they're still going to need guys to play for them next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. You can't be a dead man walking, and I think Pat Narduzzi is very far from being a dead man walking. It doesn't really seem like it's in his personality to be a dead man walking, and to recruit as such and treat it as such. So regardless of what he might do with his staff in the offseason, and I think there will be changes that are made. I mean, there have been changes almost every year. This past offseason was really one of the, I think, only 2 times that Narduzzi has gone through an offseason without changing at least one member of his coaching staff. And I imagine there will be coaching staff changes this offseason. It's sort of, you could play the odds on that one. But that's for December. Ideally December. Maybe January. For right now, in October, you guys still work for Pitt. You collect a check from Pitt. You get out and you recruit for Pitt. And you continue recruiting for Pitt all the way up until that time when you are no longer employed by Pitt. And so, yes, business as usual has to carry on because you can't let the current struggles distract you from the reality of what college sports is, which is continuously working toward the future. So yeah, they're going to go ahead with plans for alternate uniforms. I mean, if that's what the plan is, I don't even know. It's BJ O'Brien got his hands on a white helmet somehow, right? They're going to continue recruiting 2025, 2026, 2027 kids. They're going to keep working on the 24 class. I think we saw a ton of new offers go out on Tuesday, and a whole bunch of them were 2026 guys, sophomores in high school. Because you have to keep working in that direction. Todd Graham, for whatever you want to say, continued offering kids in the class of 2013 and 14 while he was at Pitt, during those 11 months or 10 months or whatever it ended up being. And all those guys, the old Rich Rod guys, Tony Gibson and Calvin McGee and Tony Dews, I think they all knew they were leaving. I think they all knew they weren't going to be there more than a year or two, but they continued working and trying to recruit. Now, you can question how hearted their efforts were, but they continued to recruit for Pitt because that's where their job was, and you have to keep up business as usual. You don't shut down just because the team is struggling. So when you see them out offering guys, when you see them out recruiting guys, you don't have to reply to every tweet like, yeah, good luck when this coach is gone, or good luck getting him when you can't score more than 6 points against West Virginia and all this. Like, save it, because while I understand where that response comes from, It's just the reality of college sports. They have to keep working at it. Now, one thing that the coaches can sell is freshmen playing. And what we've seen so far is freshmen have gotten on the field. I keep track of the freshmen, of how much the freshmen play and how many guys have played. And right now, there are, I think, 11 freshmen have seen the field this year, including Samuel Carpenter, the walk-on kicker who kicked a field goal or attempted one against Wofford. Maybe at a kickoff, something like that. He played against Wofford. But there are 11 freshmen, including Carpenter, who played at least one game. Carpenter, Zion Fowler-El, Montrevious Lloyd, Isaiah Neal, and Lamar Seymour all played one game. They played in the Wofford game. Izzy Polk played against Cincinnati in addition to the Wofford game, so he's had 2. Jordan Bass and Rasheem Biles have both played 3 games, and it's the last 3 games. West Virginia, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, those 2 freshman linebackers all working on special teams, and Biles making the 2 blocked punts and sort of making his presence known. Bass operating on special teams, didn't play in the first 2 games, but he got out there in the last 3. BJ Williams, we know, played the 3 games. He made starts against Cincinnati and North Carolina. I think he started against North Carolina. Obviously, he started against Cincinnati. That was one of the big changes in the lineup. Yeah, Williams started against North Carolina as well. Just wanted to double check on that. And then you get to the 2 guys who have burned their red shirts. Kenny Johnson and Braylon Lovelace have played in all 5 games this season. Per the NCAA, you can play in as many as 4 games without burning your red shirt. Those 2 have gone over those numbers. And I don't think their reps are being wasted. Obviously, I think we would all like to see Kenny Johnson get some more targets and get the ball thrown to him a little bit more. He's had 7 targets so far this season. He has 2 catches for 17 yards, and both of those catches came in the Wofford game. He also has 3 rushing attempts for 20 yards, and of course, he had the 100-yard kick return touchdown against North Carolina. But Johnson, you want to see him more involved in the offense. I want to see him more involved in the offense. I want to see him more involved in the passing game. And we've seen it over the last 2 weeks, because in both of these last 2 games, in North Carolina and Virginia Tech game, he's logged 30-plus snaps on offense, in addition to his special teams work. His numbers probably boosted a little bit last week when Bub Means went out. But if it's me, and I imagine if it's you too, I'm getting Kenny Johnson as involved as I can possibly get him. 30-plus snaps sounds good. I say that number keeps going up, and you start getting him more and more targets in the regular flow of the offense. Things that he, sure, downfield, you want to stretch the field with him, that's great. Also, just, quick passes, things that you can get him involved and get the ball in his hands. They've done that with the 3 rushing attempts, the jet sweeps, so it's clear that they know he's a playmaker and he's a guy who can make something happen. I don't think they would try to put the ball in his hands that way if he wasn't, or if they didn't have that confidence. He needs to get an increased role in the receiving game, increased targets. Lovelace, you're seeing him add up more and more snaps. He played 39 snaps at Virginia Tech. That was his season high, his career high, obviously, as well. He had the big play where he recovered the fumble and took it back for a touchdown. And, he has probably been the primary benefactor. Well, him and Kyle Lewis. I talked about this a little bit yesterday of Lovelace and Lewis seeing their reps increase after Bengali Kamara went down with an injury at West Virginia. Lewis stepping into that star linebacker role as the starter, and Lovelace emerging, I think, as his backup. I think that's where Lovelace has mostly played. Haven't kept as close an eye on that as I should, but we'll try and get some feedback from the coaches on that one. But those 2 guys have seen extra reps because of Bengali Kamara being out, and while it may not always be pretty, and I think and I think certainly everyone would acknowledge that there have been some struggles with the linebacking core, every snap that Kyle Lewis gets, every snap that Braylon Lovelace gets is going to make them better. It's going to make it better for Pitt next week, next month, next season. And so it's not the ideal situation, but I think it's there's an upside to it. There's a silver lining to that cloud, and it's that Braylon Lovelace is getting a ton of experience, and he'll continue to get a ton of experience over the course of the season. Maybe that drops a little bit when Bengali Kamara comes back, assuming he'll be back this year, and I am assuming that. But I think it's super valuable for him to get those snaps. An interesting conversation we've had about freshmen on the message board, and I probably could go deeper on this, maybe do a whole episode on it. I wonder if the coaches are less inclined to try and preserve red shirts in the current climate and landscape of college athletics, because anybody at any time could transfer. You know what I mean? Like you really don't know who's going to last 4 years, 5 years in your program. And I don't know if you can really count on too many guys lasting 4 or 5 years in your program. As such, I think if you believe Rasheem Biles can keep helping you on special teams, and that's all he does all season is just play special teams, get him out there. You might as well. Yeah, and I don't know that Rasheem Biles is going to transfer in 2 years. I don't know what he's going to do. But it's less... I think you're taking more of a risk if you try to save those red shirts and hold on to those guys and not run them out there and get whatever you can out of them. If Jordan Bass gives you a good option as a gunner or punt coverage or kick coverage or whatever he's doing for you, get him out there. Because who knows how long he's going to be around. Outside of linemen, really on both sides of the ball, if I'm the coaches, I have no hesitation about burning guys' red shirts. Because I just don't see... The only real upside is if a guy does stick around for a little while. If he gets hurt, he can still use his red shirt and not waste a year that way. Otherwise, I'm rolling guys out there. And I think it's good they've done it with Johnson and Lovelace. And I say, if Bass is up to 3 games right now. Who is the other one who is at 3 games? Bass, Biles, BJ Williams. Maybe BJ Williams a little bit less. If you feel like you can stabilize your O-line rotation, you don't need to use him. Maybe you can hold him back. But Bass and Biles, play them. Get them on the field. If nothing else, it'll keep them happy. They're good athletes. They can help you. Play them. Play them. There's no sense. There's not a lot to be gained, I don't think, by holding them back and hoping to preserve a red shirt. 2 other guys I want to talk about. Donovan McMillan and Gavin Bartholomew. And I want to bring up McMillan. He's currently Pitt's leader in tackles. He's got 44 total tackles. Half of them are solo tackles. Half of them are assisted tackles. He's 5th in the ACC right now in tackles per game, averaging 8.8. He's at that spot. I thought this was interesting. Given all the success that Pitt has had on defense over the years under Narduzzi, no Pitt defender has ever finished higher than 6th in tackling in the ACC. Now, mostly I'm talking about tackles per game. There's a decent chance Jordan Whitehead would have been there in 2016. I think, depending on how many minimum games played, they would have counted. Whitehead did finish 6th in 2015 when he had 109 tackles. He was 6th in total tackles that year. Incidentally, the only time under Narduzzi that a Pitt defender has recorded 100-plus tackles. McMillan at 44 with 5 games played, and really he didn't. He piled them up largely in the last 3 games or so. But you move over the years. You go through the years of Pitt being in the ACC under Pat Narduzzi. Like I mentioned, Whitehead was 6th in the conference in total tackles in 2015. In 2017, Sean Idowu was 10th in tackles per game. 2019, Paris Ford was 10th in tackles per game. And last year, Servassier Dennis was 6th in tackles per game. And that's it. Those are the only times that a Pitt defender has finished in the top 10 in the ACC in tackles over the Narduzzi era, which I think is really interesting. I would have guessed there'd be more success. I would have guessed that you'd see guys up there more often. I don't think it's totally unique or a cause for concern that Donovan McMillan is piling up these tackles right now. Somebody suggested that on the message boards. Is clearly the safety making all those tackles is an indictment on the linebackers. But I went over this over the summer, if you recall, that's typically what has happened. That safeties end up being among the tops in tackles in this defense because of the way they play, how close they are to the line of scrimmage, how involved they are in stopping the run. So in 2015, Jordan Whitehead led the team in tackles from the safety position. 2018, Damar Hamlin led the team in tackles. 2019, Paris Ford and Damar Hamlin were 1 and 2 respectively in tackles. 2020, Damar Hamlin again led the team in tackles. 2021, Brandon Hill was 2nd on the team in tackles, and in 2022, he was 2nd on the team in tackles, and Eric Howlett was 3rd. It's not uncommon, and I remember even when Pat Narduzzi was first hired, looking at the Michigan State defense and seeing that safeties often led the team in tackles because of how involved they are, particularly that boundary safety spot, which is where Paris Ford played, it's where Brandon Hill played, it's where Jordan Whitehead played his first year, And it's where Donovan McMillan plays right now. It's not all that crazy to see them piling up tackles. That's what that position is supposed to do. And it's not like the old Dave Wanstead 4-3 defense where the middle linebacker is that guy who's out there making all of those tackles. They play differently. They're facing different types of offenses. And that boundary safety, again, McMillan's spot, ends up being maybe the most active position on the field and getting involved in the most tackles. Now, he had 18 tackles or whatever it was against West Virginia, and that's going to boost his numbers for sure. But on the whole, I think you're seeing McMillan fit into that role and follow the lead of those guys who came before him at that position and being really active in tackling there. So it's not an indictment on the linebackers as much of it is, as it is McMillan settling into a position that's sort of really ideal for him. And I mean, they didn't create the position for him. They've had that position for a while. And I'm sure they tried to sell him on playing that position when he was coming out of Peters Township a couple years ago. But it's just, it's a near perfect spot for McMillan. And, you know, could he move to outside linebacker, bulk up a little bit and play outside linebacker? Probably, yeah. I think he could be pretty good there. But in this defense, in this scheme, he's, you know, really ideal for that boundary safety spot. As ideal as anybody has been. Other than, you know, I mean, obviously like a Jordan Whitehead was just a super athlete. He was so good as an athlete that he could play in a lot of different positions. But that's a good spot for McMillan, and he's capitalizing. All right, last thing, I want to talk about Gavin Bartholomew. It's not like we haven't talked up El Barto enough on this program and basically any chance we get. But Gavin Bartholomew, this guy, okay? This guy, Gavin Bartholomew, I'm going to bring up the stats because it's fairly ridiculous how good he has been. He's second on the team in receptions. He's got 12 catches. He leads the team in receiving yards, 258. He's got 1 touchdown. He averages 21.5 receiving yards per catch, which is an absurd number for a tight end. An absurd number. No Power 5 tight end who has at least 10 targets this season is averaging more yards per catch than Bartholomew. And only 3 Power 5 tight ends with at least 10 targets have a higher NFL passer rating when they're targeted. He's 34th among Power 5 tight ends in total targets, but he's 4th in receiving yards, and he's 3rd in yards per route run. Gavin Bartholomew has caught 12 passes this year. 9 of them have gained a touchdown or a first down. 1 touchdown and 8 first downs. That's a remarkable number. That's 75% of his catches. And quite frankly, 9 out of his 15 targets, he's been targeted 15 times. 9 out of the 15 times that he's been targeted, he has turned it into a touchdown or a first down. 60%, right? 9 out of 15 is 60%. 60% of the time when they throw it to Bartholomew, they either get a touchdown or a first down. Never mind like when he catches it. Just you throw it to him. If you throw it to him 10 times, you're going to get 6 touchdowns or first downs. You have to lean into this full go. I mean, just full go, full send on getting the ball to El Barto and keep throwing it to him. There's no reason he should be averaging 3 targets per game. And you know, I know you got to spread the ball around. You can't just throw to one guy, and that's fine. Throw to Konate Mumfield as well. He's averaging 6 targets per game. Keep those numbers up and get Bartholomew's numbers up. He's got to be a focal point. We talked about it last week when we talked about emphasizing the playmakers and focusing on the guys who can actually make a difference, and he's one of them, and it continues to be the case. You know, he could have an historic season. You know, he could be one of the best tight ends in the country, and he might be one of the best tight ends in the country. He could have the stats to back it up if you just pepper him with targets, more than 3 per game. He's got to get the ball. And you have to design the offense to get the ball to him. You have to have plays where when they break the huddle, the quarterback, and we'll just use the non-specific term, the quarterback, has to know, I'm going to 86. I'm going to 86. That you have to draw that into the offense because the ball has to go to him. It does. And Mumfield, too. I think Mumfield's really good. I think Konate Mumfield can do good things for this team. I think when he's had an opportunity, he's made plays. Great catch against Virginia Tech last week. Those are your primary focal points. Those 2 guys in the passing game. And then start bringing along Kenny Johnson and get him to fill in as another option. I'm not saying I'm totally off the hype train, but let's be real. You need to win games. You need to score points. You need to move the ball through the air. Those are the guys who can do it for you. Bartholomew and Mumfield. All right, tomorrow we'll have our mailbag. Got great questions already rolling in. A couple more that we need to pick up from last week. So we will do that tomorrow. It's always fun to do those mailbag episodes of the Morning Pit. Thanks for tuning in today. I appreciate it. It's Thursday, folks. We made it almost to the end of the week. Tomorrow's where we all get to check out and have a quiet weekend of no Pitt football, and then we'll be back into it for a full regular in-season week next week. But thanks for watching the video today. Thanks for watching them all week. As always, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will check you out and catch up with you on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. So have a good Thursday. We will talk to you tomorrow morning on the Morning Pit right here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com.